Welcome to another live stream of Lighting Artists talking about lighting and game development. Today we have William Labrie. He has worked on Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, which has obviously a very unique art style, and obviously everyone more or less knows about Dungeons & Dragons and is probably interested in it. Like I play Dungeons & Dragons pen and paper as well, so for me it's always interesting to get a more 3D game version inside of the world. So with no ado, let's just introduce him and let's invite him into the stream. So hello, William.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here, obviously. So, William, why don't you introduce you briefly yourself?
Yeah. So, my name is William. I'm a lighting artist at Tug Game in Montreal. I've been in the industry for about a year and a half right now, and Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance is the first. It's my first release, my first game that I worked on. And I'm super excited to talk about it, about the art and everything we did on lighting side with you guys.
Cool, that's very nice. We're definitely looking forward to learning a bit about what goes into lighting a Dungeons & Dragons universe. Because it has a very specific, I would say it has a very specific art style, more or less. You know, there's a set of rules you have to follow and probably color palette, probably mood, all these things. So before we go into that, as a lighting artist at Tug Games, if you were to explain someone with no knowledge about lighting artists in your specific context at your studio, how would you explain your role?
Sometimes when people ask me what's the lighting artist job, I'm always saying the same joke as I'm placing virtual light bulb. That's what I did. I'm team light bulb. But in fact, what I do everything in regard of lighting and ambience, everything, setting up the mood, everything that's kind of tying the art together. For me, that's what lighting does. Like when the level artists, they do their job, afterward, just lighting will bring everything together and make the environment come to life, right? Making look like it's a real place, that there's a feeling, there's a mood, there's something there.
Cool. So just for the viewers who are actually watching, for some reason my live chat is off on YouTube. It's on Twitch. It's on LinkedIn. But if you happen to be watching YouTube, you can join our Discord. And you can ask your question on Discord. So if you join our Discord, I will put it on the comment field again if you missed it. And you can just join there and you can ask your questions, and I will then read it up out loud for William to answer. As long as it's relevant and to what we're talking about, obviously. So with that out of the way, I will repeat it every now and then, though, as I see more people come and go. Discord server join. So William, you have this is your first experience in terms of lighting. So let's start with your experience. How has it been? How did it start, and what challenges did you go through?
Yeah, I can like start way back the story. I was a student. I started in architecture at first. That was my where I was going in life, and then I started to play with 3D for art visualization and stuff like that, and I really love it. And I went to school for 3D modeling, and game wasn't really what I was hoping to go to, but I fell in love with it, and it was amazing to work on. And then after school, I got hired at Tug. At first, I was hired to be part lighting artist and part 3D environment artist. I was kind of there to helping with lighting, and then afterward, if I'm done with lighting, helping the environment team. But with COVID, when we all went to lockdown, it kind of changed everything, and I kind of become 100% lighting artist. And at the end, we were only 2 lighting artists on the project. And my colleague, she's amazing, a senior lighting artist at our studio, that she went for lighting the cinematic. So I become alone on gameplay. So that was a big challenge to start from being a junior, a guy from school, going in, and after a month having to work on the entire game. And so for me, the big challenge wasn't necessarily lighting and art related, but more of organization and scheduling and not go crazy and like figure out how to spend my time accordingly to what I have to do. Because at the end, I have like 20 something plus level to light, and at first I was kind of pulling my hair out.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's the for me, that was the main challenge, was like focusing.
So did you have to organize your time on your own a lot?
We have like every other studio, we have a scheduling, we have producer who make sure like we go in the right direction, and like we have to do this by this time. But since there were so many levels, I still have to, like, I knew, okay, by this date I have to be done with this and this. But in the middle of that, I needed to be like conscious of like, okay, I cannot spend that amount of hour in that little section of the map because I need to do the entire map, and so on and so on.
Cool. So what did you study specifically when you were a student? Did you switch between several studies, or did you stick to one? Did you know what you were doing, or was it just an accident to become?
But the what I studied, because at the school I went in Montreal, we have a school. It's called NAD. It's a university program, but it's a 3-year of 3D modeling, animation, everything, either game or VFX, like movie related. You choose which branch you go in, and so they teach you pretty much general 3D thing. You want to do 3D modeling, level art. They teach you a little bit of everything, and then you can decide on what you want to go for. And it wasn't long that I loved lighting. I like, for a long time when I was starting, I was like, okay, yeah, that's the thing that's really inspiring me. So that's when I go to more specific into lighting rather than 3D modeling or level art or anything like that.
Cool. For people who don't know about Dungeons and Dragons, let me just show you guys the trailer so you know kind of the mood, the style, and what we're talking about. I've tried the game in terms of watching the YouTube videos. I thought it looked great. I've not bought it yet, but let's have a look and see what we're talking about.
We call them beholders, wraiths, giants. They call us snacks. So when those bastards come to claim your world, send their ass to hell. Is calling.
So yeah, it's obviously out now, so you guys can go and buy it if you want to. It's obviously great. Looks great. The music is also very suitable. I think it's a great trailer. So let's talk about this lighting. What was your average day when working on this project?
Average day, well, it was pretty much starting the day, going into meeting. What's the plan? What level we need to push forward for that week or for that month, and then going in, doing light pass, and then obviously on the big thing, and I think a lot of lighting artists can relate, waiting for build time, because baking lighting is a big part of my day. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Always and being in talk with the level artist, level designer, like what's the main path, what's the objective, where we need to go, and then doing the light pass, because pretty much my day was balancing doing some art stuff, making the lighting look great, but at the same time making sure it serves its other purpose, and it's guiding the player, make sure that the gameplay paths are clear, where you need to go, and you don't end up like on a major part of the game and it's total pitch black and you cannot see anything. So I think that's what's pretty much my day-to-day, was this balance of doing art versus like making the level functional.
So a lot of the questions will be about your work and follow up around the lighting you did. So why don't we share the screen and look at some of your work, and we just talk and people can also see, so you have easier time explaining what we're talking about visually. Because I have a question which most people might know and might not know. We don't know, so we're gonna ask it anyway. Is you said you did the lighting for the game, and when you do the lighting for the game, you're talking about player path, and then there's also the mood, and there's the technical limitation you have to follow. So let's break this down to 3 topics: the mood, which is the art style, including art style, the player path, as in how do you light for the player path in this game, and then the technical things. So which one do you want to cover first?
We'll go with art first, and then I guess you will naturally move on to gameplay and stuff. And so yeah, I was working on gameplay, like you said, on the environment, and one of the thing that was pretty tied up with art direction, it was a color palette. You talked a bit about it. If you look at every level, every mission has its own color palette, its own style, depending on which monster you're fighting, on what's the story behind the level. So that's always something we had to keep in mind. And we always try to work with usually with 2 color. We have one primary color that's usually rendered by the directional light, fog, all of those things, and then a secondary color that's kind of helping guiding the player and give a little touch of color in here and there. As you can see on this one, we all have those primary color. It's the yellow kind of arch sunlight for that level. That it's kind of the main ambience of this particular level. And after that, you can see we have the secondary color that is the kind of bluish that's emitting from the crystal. We have some mushroom, some troll nests. We have a lot of light source that kind of give this secondary color. And we have that for pretty much all of our level. Here we have the yellow and blue palette. Here we are kind of in the same bluish, whitish main color with the deep red. Same for here, we have the whitish with the super orange color. So each level has this kind of balance between those 2 color. And if we go back to, like you said, the gameplay, I'm going to already jump into that. It's also helping us guide the player. Because when you start the level, you can see already at the end of the level, the super blue door coming from the crystal. And it's kind of giving up the idea of the player that this is the main focus. We have the directional light kind of pointing in the same direction. And after that, everything from the perspective of the player and the gameplay, every pocket kind of has that secondary color, kind of guiding you from one pocket to another. So when you're playing the game, you know, when you're done with one arena, when you look up, you can see like not so far from where you are, there's another pocket with the same kind of bluish tint coming out of it. And it's really helped guiding the player. So it kind of goes both hand in hand, the art and the navigation for the player. So that's pretty much it for that. After that, the technical aspect of it, we talk about for lighting artists. Sometimes we're kind of we love to hug all of the performance of a game because lighting is expensive and we want it to look like super good. Obviously, we want super nice shadow. We want that thick, deep fog. For Dark Alliance, the one of the thing we had to keep in mind is we are on multiple platforms, from Xbox One to the new generation, PC, all of those things. So we cannot go crazy with all dynamic lighting everywhere and shadow caster everywhere. So we really need to focus on where we need important shadow, where we can fake it when we can use static or stationary. That was another big part of it, trying to optimize all of those big level and make it sure they look super good. also, if we look at other maps,
cool.
sometimes the color palette, like we said, yes, it's helping guiding, but sometimes it's really for creating the mood. You can see the difference between the super sunny arch lighting, and then we go in another mission where we are in more of a nighttime. You can see the kind of village at the end with the super orange, red, fiery camp. So there's something going on there, but you have the nice moonlight coming in. So that's part of what I was doing on a daily basis, balancing those ambience together. With the help also of like art direction, like our art director has a super like nice vision of what he wanted, and it's pretty much what we did with those two color, like complementing each other on every level.
So every level has two color, and then you focus on player path using the second color. So like the torches in this case is probably what you use to lead the player. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're having those color contrast basically, and then you also have to limit your shadows and make sure it's technically viable.
And sometimes also we have those color, those secondary color all the time, like we talked about. Sometimes we allowed ourselves of having one specific pocket, either for visual sake or for just for the fun of like changing it a bit, because if we always have the same color throughout the level, sometimes it can get boring, so we can afford to have a bit more fun. So if we could look at this post right there, we had a section with like super green glowy mushroom, and there's nothing green in that map, but we were like talking with the level designer, and we're like, oh, this pocket, we need to make it feel special. We're going to have gameplay, a part of the quest that goes there. So can we make it look a bit different and make it look like to make it pop out from the rest of the map? So sometimes we have a third color that we add, but we have to be careful of not blending them all together. It's going to look up like a weird pizza at the end if we add too much light, but we can end up with very specific pocket with crazy color also.
Yeah, I mean it looks amazing, and hopefully we'll scroll slowly over time through all of the images, but it's like there's a lot of different color and mood and creative coloring and lighting in this game, which is not very common in a lot of games, because a lot of games have the same color palette all over the place. It doesn't change too much, but here you have like green, blue, red. There's a lot of variety, which is really cool. I also see we have a lot of people watching. If you want to ask a question, you have to join Discord. On every stream, more or less, there should be a Discord link somewhere on the description, so you can join that. If you're on LinkedIn or Twitch, the chat should work. If you're on YouTube, I'm sorry, it's not working. So you definitely have to be on Discord to ask the questions. Feel free to ask any questions, especially if it's lighting related. That's very welcome. It can be technical things, artistic thing, color theory. I mean, you can look at some of the screenshots Williams is showing. It's a lot of variety here, and I believe you were the only lighting artist in this project as well.
I wasn't the only lighting artist. At first, there were a bunch of people who work on lighting, but people change studios, stuff like that. So we were actually two lighting artists on the game. It was me and my colleague and mentor. Her name is Solène Cobbler. She's an amazing lighting artist. She worked on a game like Gears of War. She worked on the movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. She had a kind of big portfolio. And so we worked together. At some point, she was doing cinematic. She was focusing on cinematic lighting. Me, I was working on the environment lighting. But since the cinematic and take place in the environment, we kind of have a crossover of working together. Sometimes she was doing mostly every place there's a cinematic. She was in charge of lighting this area to make it fit with the cinematic. So we were two lighting artists working on the project. On the big production part of the project, there were a bunch of people before that also work on lighting. But yeah, on the gameplay side for a long time, I was alone for a bit on lighting.
So a question from Cat Loveland. What are the main software you're seeing being used in the game industry? You said you weren't interested in lighting games to begin with. Were you an avid gamer before you got hired? So there's two questions there. What's the main software you're seeing being used in the game industry? And second question, were you an avid gamer before you got hired?
Yeah, but for software for lighting artists, I think what we're going to use most is always the engine that the studio is using. So, for example, us, we were working on Unreal Engine, so that's the software I was using. Some studio work with Unity, some studio have their own custom render engine. So, pretty much that's going to be the main software you're going to use, the dedicated engine that the studio decide that they want to use. Maybe also for me, I was also using Photoshop. It's a great tool when you're not sure about color. Before, like for example, for this map, we worked a bit about some of the color palette, and it's way easier to have a nice screenshot and go in Photoshop and play with curves, level, and adjust this way to have like a roughly idea of what it could look like if the lighting, instead of being some yellow and orange torch, it was going to be some, I don't know, some green or some purple or whatever the color we could use. And so it's speed up the process of not spending the time to relight the entire environment, change every color, just to be like, we like it better before. So
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, we use Unity for our project. And we also use Photoshop a lot. Well, my art director, he uses Photoshop a lot. He likes to do paint overs. So when I do something and he wants to explain something very quickly, he'll do paint overs very quickly. So you already answered this, but I'm going to ask it again for the new viewers who might have missed it. Was this your first game lighting job?
Yeah, that was the first game. I was a lighting artist. In fact, that was my first game at all ever, and also as a lighting artist. Yeah.
Sweet and simple answer to a sweet and simple question. Tom is asking opinion about baked lighting versus full real-time lighting.
Oh, yes. Okay, so for everybody who's watching, who work with me, they're going to know the answer right away is dynamic lighting all the time, if possible. That makes the life of everybody way easier, for sure. Both have their pros and cons, that's for sure. It's just that static lighting, depending on the size of the project, the size of the game, it can be at time a bit hard. Like when you're building at preview quality, it doesn't matter. But when you reach a state in the production and you're baking at higher quality and production quality, when you have 20 level to bake, it takes a lot of time, not just for me, but for the entire production, because as soon as somebody needs to move an asset, this gameplay asset, this section doesn't work, we need to change it. Every time we need to rebake lighting. And so it's really time consuming. And also just for tracking performance, if the lighting is not baked and technical artists and engineer team, they want to profile the game to see if the performance are okay, the stats, everything work. If it's not baked, you're not going to get the actual result of those tests. So it's a few things that we need to consider with big baked lighting. The main thing that it's good for, it's the performance of it. When it's baked, like static lighting, it costs nothing compared to dynamic lighting. Even though right now dynamic lighting is way better than it used to be. Like a few years ago, dynamic lighting was killing the performance every time. Right now, it's way more affordable. Well, that was a long answer just for saying that I prefer dynamic lighting.
Long answer is good. Good to give a reason behind some of these answers.
And especially especially right now with Unreal 5, for everybody who start playing with it, with Lumen and all those things, I feel like that having a nice dynamic lighting setup really bring back the lighting artist job of more of an artist and an art side job, because lighting artists are always been kind of a in between with doing art stuff and doing technical stuff, because you have to juggle with both of them. But with like Lumen that's coming up with Unreal 5, I'm hoping that the lighting artist job is going to be way more about just doing some art, because at the end of the day, that's what we are, right?
I think most people will probably be using Lumens for high-end console, high-end PC at least. I think it will be a long time before Xbox, the old one, will run it. But do you ever use a dynamic and baked? Like, would you do your baked and then fill in more with dynamic, or how are you, that's not the workflow you use?
For this game right now, we're using dynamic. We're using static lighting, but we also use stationary light with dynamic shadow in some area. So it's not completely static, no moving shadow at all. We still use stationary light. So in some key place, some key light, we have real-time shadow for character and monster. But we are a bit more limited than having it full on dynamic. So yeah, that's and at some point, like we have to the way we're using it, like for example, every torch in the game, we use a light function to give the light some flicker to make it look like real fire. So at the level standpoint, sometimes we use more stationary light, and then the more it goes up in the level, it becomes static because we don't need it. Like those, like you see on screen, those light on top doesn't need to be dynamic because the player is never going to be so close to it, so it can be static and it's not going to matter. But it's nice when you're near a torch that the actual light coming up from the torch is flickering, giving the sense of an actual flame.
So you would say dynamic lighting for you is best used if you want some interactivity, visible interactivity, basically.
Yeah, that for me that's why it's super nice when you see like a player moving. You have some tree that casting real time like leaf shadow on the ground. It gives you a really nice art opportunity to have something a bit more dynamic in your environment. Also, it's nice for like nicer and crispier shadow because dynamic lighting will always depend on like light map resolution and like a bunch of settings that can make the shadow look a bit blobby and not as sharp or as good looking as a nice dynamic shadow.
So do you use any extra lights when you do lighting? Is there any of your screenshots where you had like multiple lights to fill in an area or get a rim light or fix a too dark shadow or anything? Or do you normally use just the light source, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, the way I'm working usually is I start with a key light. If I'm doing like an entire environment or something like that, I'm going to use a main key light. Then secondary light, but I'm always using some bake point light that's not casting shadow. If I need to fill up, if there's one section that the shadow are too black, I'm going to use a static point light, no shadow casting, just super subtle, just to lift up everything so we can see a bit of detail in the shadow and it's not completely pitch black. Rim light, you talk about rim light, that's the thing I love most is putting rim light everywhere, even if it doesn't make sense. I'm guilty of it, and I'm doesn't feel ashamed of saying it, but like rim light make everything look super good. So sometimes I put rim light in angle that doesn't make sense with the actual light source, but that's a tip for people starting. Nobody's gonna notice it except other lighting artists who pay super attention to those details, but it's just going to make it look nice and nobody's going to ask where that light's coming from. It's just going to look nice. And
so you did that a lot in this game?
Yeah, I did that a lot. And having it's usually when I do rim light, it's all static, like it's a static spotlight that I put in some key place just to make it everything pop a little bit.
Well, we'll make that into competition. Can you find all William's rim light in the game?
They're everywhere. It's not going to be that hard, but yeah.
So is this rim light, is that an extra light or?
Yeah, it's extra spotlight that I place in specific case that it's baked, so it doesn't cost it doesn't cost like another dynamic light. For example, in this section, I can tell you that there's a spotlight right here just for this this cauldron here, just to make it pop, having it a bit more detail. It's another light that I place to run this section. I'm pretty sure, like even if there's a big source there, I've added another just to have a bit of light catching in the section.
It's interesting because normally when I do rim light, I use dynamic without shadow, but you use static without shadow. It's interesting.
Yeah, for this project, if it was a personal project, I might have do the same thing with the dynamic no casting shadow. The reason it's because of performance cost. Because even if it's not casting shadow, there's still a cost of a dynamic light. So I bake it just because. In my mind, the way I see it is like this light might not be necessary, so I'm not going to be in the cost of the performance of the game. I'm going to do it as a kind of a cherry on top. So yeah, I bake it for performance reason for this game.
Yeah, because in our game we have also limited texture memory. So every time we bake, you have a texture memory, right? So that's why I avoid static baking in our case. But I mean, this is a beautiful shot as well, right? So obviously, it helps with being a rim light addict. It probably wouldn't look the same with all the rim lights and edge lighting on some of the items you can see here. For sure. I think what we'll do, we'll show the environment video a bit before we continue, so people can see it a bit more alive and breathing, because that's a different experience also altogether. So we'll do that very quickly now. Yeah, so still a reminder, it's still out. It's been out. Go buy it, go try it. So, I mean, obviously, there was a lot of places you have to lit. That's different, I've noticed. So, in terms of lighting, do you also Are you the one responsible of making sure it flickers correctly, or any emissive materials? How far does your role go as a lighting artist at the studio?
It really depends on which asset, because sometimes everything emissive related is more on the content and the VFX team. We're doing those type of thing. The way we work at the beginning, when we start more of the production of making the level, my colleague, she did something great for us. She made a setup of blueprint for every torch. And the way it worked, there's already a light function in it. There's already some color overlay we can do. And after that, when you just place the torch in the level, we have slider to change the color of the flame, the color of the light, the at which rate the flicker of the light goes. So all of this was kind of pre-made beforehand. So we have this tool to work on the level. So after that, like I was in charge of like in the level, okay, at which rate we wanted to flicker, what's the color we're going to use, and talking with the art direction of the color you wanted. So I wasn't really in charge of doing those those tools that were kind of already made, but after that it made the actual art job way easier of doing the actual lighting itself.
Makes sense. Tom says salute from Montreal, because he's also in Montreal. And Kat says gorgeous in terms of the lighting and everything. Yeah. I mean, what is your favorite part of the job, like that you had so far? Like, what did you enjoy the most?
To be honest, jokingly, for me, the best thing about lighting artists is putting God rays everywhere. That's my main.
So rim lighting and God ray. That's it.
Rim lighting and God ray, pretty much like the pinnacle of my work. If I can put it everywhere, I'm gonna put it everywhere, and I love it. But there's two things. One thing is for me, I'm a big fan of visual art and aesthetic and beautiful stuff. So for me, what I really loved about the job is like the final product, the way it comes together with the work of the level artist, the work of the modeling, the VFX team. It is kind of when we end up with a final product like we see in right now. That's for me, that's the best part of the job, seeing like what we can do together as a team on a level with a vision and make it look as good as possible. And just working in this industry in general is super nice. Like the first 2 weeks, even the first 2 months, I was just always smiling while working, because I couldn't fathom the fact that I was paid to do this job. Like for me, it was surreal that this is a possibility. It's like, so maybe those are the two main thing as a lighting artist that make me happy.
Cool. So the God rays, is that using Unreal's inbuilt features, or is there some extra work going on behind there?
It's all made in Unreal directly. It's volumetric fog, volumetric scattering on directional light. It's also we also use light shaft occlusion with the directional light, something we love to use, because every time we have some like this one, that's the best example for it. We have a tree with small plane for leaf. It really cuts out the fog and give those super crispy God rays. So yeah, it's all in Unreal, directly in Unreal.
Cool. So what would you say is the most challenging part of being a lighting artist?
There's two things I'll say. First thing is going to be the more technical aspect of it for everybody, especially everybody who's starting. And for me, that was it. I was starting like at the beginning of the project. I was a super beginner in the industry. So the technical part of it, I think, is the most challenging. Make sure that you don't overdo it. You don't overput, like you said, God rays. You don't go crazy with the dynamic shadow. Sometimes we get carried away as an artist. We start up lighting a thing, and we love it, and we add more, and at some point it's like we need to cut back, because it's not going to run the console. So maybe that's the most challenging. The second one for me, the project I was doing before working at the studio, my personal project, I was doing more of a cinematic aesthetic of it. I have some old work we did that was more of a cinematic style of doing so. So you only care about this shot, right? You only care about what the camera see. We don't care about the 360 of it, like what's happening in the back. We don't care because it's only one shot. And I think that was my biggest challenge of like in video game, everywhere the player looks, it needs to look good. It needs to be pleasing. It needs to be good 360 around you. So that's another challenge, to have something look nice everywhere the player go, but still make sure that the correct path is lightened, the gameplay area are well lit for gameplay, without sacrificing the 360 view of everything.
Right. So essentially, good lighting and gameplay lighting, but also readability for the player, because you can't have it too dark, which you might do in a cinematic shot, because you need to be able to see the enemies, for example, so on and so forth. So these are the details we're talking about in gameplay. So if you had to pick between cinematic and gameplay, which do you prefer?
Oh, good question. Right now, I'd say it's a constant struggle, because as an artist, you always want to work on everybody and touch everything. But right now, gameplay it's where I'm most happy and comfortable, because that's what I'm currently doing. I wouldn't mind going into cinematic, because I'd say you have more freedom, because like you said, you don't have to care about the readability of the level, the gameplay aspect. If the shadows are pitch black, it's okay. It looks nice. It looks aesthetic. It looks like a movie. So I think you have a bit more of artistic freedom on cinematic. But I don't know, gameplay, it's another challenge. It has its own perk. So yeah, another long answer for saying either, like both of them, in fact. But yeah, for now, gameplay, I really enjoy it.
I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because there is some difference between doing gameplay lighting, cinematic lighting, and also something called dialogue lighting, which studios like Ubisoft, they have a lot of dialogue lighting as well, which is like in between cinematic and gameplay, basically. What would you say are let's say, the top 3 skills someone would need to do good or be good as a lighting artist? Like, what advice would you give someone to focus on if they were to become a lighting artist or a better lighting artist?
I think the thing is the most for sure color theory. If you learn about color theory, which color goes and which color complement each other. I'll also put in that same bracket learning about contrast. I think it's something that's going to help like a lot to develop a nice lighting skill. That's for sure. The other one, I'd say, not just it's going to be more specific of game, but understanding and the way the level it work, understanding the navigation, understanding even if it's not actually like art related, but if you can understand the pace of the game you're working and all those stuff, it's going to be way easier for you to light, because it's gonna make sense. Like where you put the light, you won't struggle of I need to put a light here. Is it good or not? Because it's always gonna be worth it for gameplay reason for sure.
I like while you're talking, I see people that I know are on Discord following you on our station, just popping up as you're talking. Go on.
And I think the other, I don't know if it's an actual skill or more of a thing to do, but learning the traditional and lighting and like in movie, or if you're doing photography and all of those things, doing actual lighting work, understanding like in the scene in the cinema when they're lighting a character, the way they put the light, where they put the light, and what's the mood that's it's linked with this lighting setup. I think understanding that is going to help a lot translate it after that into the video game or cinematic work, or even like animation work. I think that's another thing that's great to understand the basic outside of the 3D world, like the actual basic of lighting and composition of light. I think it's another one.
So basically what we're saying is lighting is not as simple as people think. There's a lot to pick up. There's a lot to learn to be able to do great lighting. Especially if you do your own portfolio pieces, then there might be even more you have to pick up and learn, right? Because you're doing a lot of the things on your own. So we do have a question for you again from a Cat Loveland. Did you learn Unreal Engine in school, or did you learn more on the job? How did you learn Unreal Engine?
I learned it at school. The school I went here in Montreal, the 3D school that I went to. At first, they were kind of teaching both Unity and Unreal, and at some point, they kind of make a decision that, okay, we're going to only teach the student how to use Unreal Engine. So I started with Unreal at school, and after that, it was just working also like on my own for myself, because at school they're going to teach you how the engine work, what setting, how the UI is made, but after that you need to like go in and do your own research and do your own testing. For me, one of the things that really helped me, and there's a lot of resource online. If you go to the Unreal Marketplace, there's a bunch of even now with Epic, there's a bunch of free environment that people have done either for Unreal or personal stuff, and kind of reverse engineer what they're doing, like opening a scene that somebody already lit and seeing how they do it. Oh, okay, they did this shadow or this rim light this way. That's how they're setting up their fog. That's how they're setting up their skylight. Sometimes like doing this way, it really helps out, because when you start it, you don't see the final result right away, because you need to build to have the environment, build the lighting to have the final result. So if you can have a scene that is already made, and you can go backward and understanding the process of the people who made it, after that is going to be way easier for you to learn to make your own scene, because you're going to understand why your scene doesn't look as good as those people's. Okay, I made this mistake at this moment, or I didn't think about this setting, or I didn't think about this, and it's going to really help you learn Unreal way faster. That's how I learn it more after school. It's on my own like this.
Cool, that's very good. So when you do your lighting in this project, this project primarily right now, did you get all the materials and all the art assets already designed? The level was fully designed, at least I am assuming, or did you already do it while they were gray boxing or making the base layout just using gray boxing? How's your workflow per level, basically?
Me, when I joined the studio, the pre-production conceptual phase was already done. It was really, we were in full production, so everything was already, like the level, pretty much every level were already made. They're already started. Some level already had a first few light pass from previous lighting artists. Some level were pretty fresh in terms of lighting, but pretty much there weren't no gray boxing. Everything was like the assets were already made. The first level art, level design pass were already made. So when I started, I already had a nice canvas to work on. I didn't have to figure out how to light the white gray boxing. I had already every asset, every rough was already set. So I was pretty good on this side. And the only thing is, since we were still on production, and even there were a lot of iteration on level design, level art, so I had some time to move around with what the level was going to be at the end. But it was already, like, the level were already in a pretty good shape, so I can have fun with lighting.
Cool. So, because I know some studios, they start on a gray box to do the lighting, and then they get materials, and then they get the final version, basically. So what's the pipeline for you? So you do like, you're lighting this level that you have on the screen, for example, and someone else is working on a level, or do you have a point in the production where you don't have any levels to light because you work too fast, or is it normally that the 3D team is ahead of you? How does it work? When does
like I said, since on gameplay side for a while, I was doing a bunch of the level, like not all of them, but pretty much all the level I was doing by myself. I won't say I was like faster than everybody because I had a lot of lighting to do. So it pretty much since we were working in Milestone, it was like bringing all of the level to a functional pass. After that, it was bringing all the level to a shippable pass, and then bringing all the level to a more polished pass. So we were kind of in that same schedule. So I wouldn't say like we were pretty much following. Everybody was pretty much following the same kind of milestone setup, and so we always end up at the same point together, like as a team, right?
Cool. Ashar has a question. Luckily, it's on Twitch, so I can actually show this on screen this time. How do you approach the lighting if you're working for cinematic trailer? How it is different from your gameplay lighting process?
Yeah. Okay. Good. From like I said on this game, that was my colleague who was doing the cinematic. So the difference. So I cannot say for this game what was my approach because I didn't work on the cinematic lighting, but for my personal work on cinematic and then the difference between gameplay, like I said earlier, the 360 view is the main. I think is the main different approach. Because when you do cinematic, you only care about the framing. You only care about the shot. So everything outside of it doesn't matter. So you can really play with having a floating light that doesn't attach to any light source just because it's going to follow the character. You can animate the way it looks. But on gameplay, you have to be careful to not have like a random light in the middle of the arena just because at some point in the shot it looked nice, but it has to look nice all the time. Like every time you move around, it has to stay consistent. So that's the difference between both of them. So I'd say the main approach would be when you do cinematic, you can just focus on framing, focus on the shot, focus on what you're going to see in the camera. And on gameplay, it's first the 360 view. After that, it's I'd say character and monster. Like make sure that the character are well lit. You can see it. There's no because sometimes if the monster are not well lit enough, they're gonna blend with the background, and you don't want that. You want the player to always be able to see the character. So that's another struggle you need to think about when you do gameplay. And after that, it's navigation. Like make sure that when you light, it's clear where you need to go, and there's no ambiguity. Like if there's a big light at some place, you better have something to go do there, because if the players goes there because it's they follow the light and there's nothing, it's not going to be worth it for the player. So that's another thing you need to keep in mind while doing gameplay lighting, I'd say.
Cool. Since we have 20 people watching, the least you guys can do is like, subscribe, leave a positive comment wherever you're watching, be it LinkedIn, Twitch, or YouTube. That would be really helpful for the community. And feel free to join Discord. We always love more people who are interested in lighting and the game industry as well. So you said you had another colleague from start to beginning, or just a brief period?
For when I came in for start to beginning, I have a colleague that she was working on cinematic. She was amazing. And when I was getting a bit stuck on the gameplay, when I had too many level to light, she was always stopping working on cinematic, giving me a hand, taking a few level, doing some light pass, some review note to help me. She was also doing for me because she's our senior lighting artist. She has a lot of experience. She was doing some benchmark for me. She was doing some art review with the art director. So yeah, she was with me. Like, she came in before me at the studio, but she was working with me along the way on the project, and it was super helpful as a beginner, because when there's big level to light, it become a bit not confusing, but a bit stressful. And having her being sometime in the level, sometimes she was just doing a pocket for the cinematic, but it was helping me like understand, okay, that's the direction we want to go with lighting, so I could apply the same kind of benchmark to the rest of the level.
And was she a junior, a lighting artist, mid-level, senior, or?
Yeah, she's a senior lighting artist.
So what would you say is the difference between junior lighting artist, mid-level artist, and senior lighting artist? So in this case, do you see there's a difference between these roles and ranks?
The main thing I'd say it's experience. I think that's the thing that's going to separate the most of them, because senior, like every senior, they've been in the industry for way longer than a junior. So I'd say that's pretty much the big separation, is having a lot of game under the belt, a lot of project under the belt. So like for me, everything was a new experience as a junior. When I started as a junior, everything is new, right? So every obstacle you see, you see it for the first time. You have to understand why we have this issue, how are we going to fix it, how are we going to do this. And I think the more you advance, that's the main difference, is you already see a lot of production. So when there's something happening, I'd say you tend to less freak out, because okay, we know if this happened, we have to do this to fix it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Cool. So probably the last or second last question before. Did you join Discord yet? You, William? Are you in Discord?
Yeah, this morning. Yeah.
So if William wants to, he can join us later, and people can join the voice channel if William wants to, if he has time. He's on Discord, on Lighting Board as well. So if people want to follow up some more, because this could go another hour technically, because there's a lot to talk about, I've noticed. But at least I'll try and ask one more question, maybe two. If you were doing an interview to recruit a lighting artist, what are the things you would look for in a colleague? Like, what would you pay attention to when you were interviewing, if you were to interview someone?
For me, there's two things. First, the biggest thing, because we always talk about art skill and learning lighting, but for me, the one of the most important thing to work with someone is the soft skill. We don't usually talk about this, but is the person nice to be around? Does he want to learn? Does he want to? Is he excited to work with you? When you talk with him, does he look responsive? All of those little things that are not actually related to the lighting work. But if you're gonna spend the rest, I don't know, we work on a game for 4 years with the same person, 3 years, depending on the production. You want somebody you can have a conversation with, and you can grow together, and it doesn't feel like you hate your colleague. You want to be like a nice team. So I think for me that would be the most important thing first. And second, I'd say, like I talk about, if it were more on the art skill, is really learning. If the person know that like we said, the color theory, the color, lighting composition, contrast, all of those things for me are way more important than someone who knows Unreal by heart, right? Like there's a lot of people who are super expert in one engine or one software, but like anybody, like you can teach, when somebody know one software, you can teach them to use another one, you can teach them to do a lot of things. So I think having the basic knowledge of lighting composition and lighting color, contrast and color theory, color grading, I think it's another plus for sure.
So things related to things that takes time to develop, like the eye and so on.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. We are at the hour's mark. So William, do you want to promote yourself or mention anything before we start closing the interview?
Yeah, but if you guys want to see more of my work, I'm posting like I post a lot of the work I did on the game on my ArtStation. I think you link it with the post you did. So if you want to follow me on ArtStation, I'm doing work posts, and also I'm trying to on my own to do personal project that I'm going to publish over there. So that's pretty much the only promotion I could do. And yeah, that's it.
Do you have time to hang out at Discord?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we'll be on Discord a bit on the audio. We might continue off the stream because, as I told William, there's certain things we can talk about off the stream and not on the stream. So that's also why we do it a little bit on Discord. So feel free to join Discord, and we'll be there for at least 30 minutes or so for any more conversation for people who want to do that. I also want to point out Lighting Board has a website, lightingboard.com. There are written interviews there if you haven't read them yet. There are also tutorials, and there is also mentorship and so on. I do want to point out that this Wednesday we have a new person as well coming and joining us for the interview. Specifically, I haven't had the time to make the banner yet, but it is Maria Valle. She is the first lead lighting artist we have an interview with, the lead, because I worked my way up from junior to mid to senior to lead, and she has worked on Access Studios, DNEG, projects such as Dune. She's worked at Science, so Fearless, Adam's Family. She worked at Scanoma Animation. She's loved Death and Robots, Destiny 2, Warframe. So I mean, she's pretty experienced. So she will be on Wednesday, and also the second woman I've managed to persuade to contribute and be part of this. It's not that easy to find female lighting artists, so I'm pretty happy that she's also on. So keep that in mind, everyone. So we'll be on Discord now. Thank you, William, for taking the time and interest to join. Great work. I'm hoping the best of luck with the game as well, that it continues to improve. You guys make the DLCs or whatever. I don't know what's in store, but probably some good plans, I hope. So we catch up more on Discord. So let's say goodbye to everyone, and goodbye. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day if you don't join us on Discord. So goodbye.